Charter members of the Knickerbocker Golf Club was James Red Adams, his wife Morella Adams, and then Mary Brock and Shepard Brock, John Burrell, Charles Dorsey, his wife Teola Dorsey, Elba T. Gibbs, Calvin Harris, Jack Pearson, Todd Pettyjohn, Alec Smith, Blanche Smith, Richard Smith, and L. Whiting. Unfortunately, all of those members have passed on. The last two was Alec Smith and Charles Dorsey died in 2007. They were very instrumental in what has taken place and has taken place in golf, particularly with minorities. I want to talk about two members who were very instrumental in helping develop the Knickerbocker and keeping it alive. This talking to my left here is George Lyons. George started here at Knickerbocker. He was a member in the late 40s and early 50s. And he later got married, came here, actually, it might have been about 46 when he joined the club, about 46, 47, because when I joined in 1948, and he was a member then. Okay, but I want to talk a little about George Lyons. George was a Navy veteran. George eventually got married, moved to Boston, got married, had a couple of kids. But in the meantime, George became a professional golfer. Okay. But he got his start right here, and was a member of this club. But he also participated in many of the units. In fact, I would say Knickerbocker golf tournaments up until mid-90s, George never missed a Knickerbocker golf tournament. Bill Bishop. Bill is a member, he probably played in 40 Knickerbocker golf tournaments since 1944. Bill Bishop is a PGA pro in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey. He is the head pro of one of the few black clubs in this country, Freeway Golf Club in Sickleville, New Jersey. As I said, Bill is the head pro there. But Bill Bishop has played in many, many golf tournaments. He was a very, very good player as an amateur. And I'd say he turned pro maybe around 60, 65. But again, Bill never got a chance to play because of segregation. Bill is approximately 80s, around 81, 82 years old today. But had he been able to play when he was 20, 25, there's no telling how good he could have been. But he, even at a later age, in the later years, he was able to go and get his PGA card, and he did play a few senior tournaments. But he had won the Knickerbocker golf tournament more than any other individual. He has won, I would say, at least 8 professional tournaments here in New Haven. Things that happened later on in the years, so that the guys like Bielba playing the Masters, Calvin Pete, who also played in New Haven. Calvin was probably the second best black golf player in the country, in the world, second to Tiger Woods. So I would say that Calvin Pete was probably the second best player. And of course, there are other great players like Lee Elder, Ted Rose, Charles Owens, and a number of other good players. We had a number of. So after that barrier was broken, there wasn't as much a need. At least I guess they felt there was a need for the UGA to continue to exist up until late '60s or early '70s. We just couldn't play it. And after they broke the barriers down in the late '60s and early '70s, and blacks were joining country clubs and playing in their tournaments, and We had fellows on the PGA Tour. Apparently there was, I guess they felt that there was really no need to continue the UDA, the Golf Association. Clubs like the Knickerbocker, which the Knickerbocker is probably the third oldest existing club, African American club in the country, is one of the oldest, as I said earlier, the oldest African American golf clubs in the country, being somewhere around over 60 years, been around since 44. And I think one of the reasons why we were still in existence in terms of just want to be together, have an organization, we have a building, and which we purchased at 715 Sherman Avenue in New Haven in 1979. It's one of the best things that I think that we did was buying that building, because Percy Golf Course is one of our kids, and he is one of the few black pros in Connecticut who has full PGA credentials. They're going through all the training and all the schools and whatnot to get their cards. I think there are exactly 5 members, I believe, that I know of, 5 African Americans in Connecticut who have PGA credentials in Knickerbocker. In addition to opening doors for professionals to play, we've just done so much in terms of encouraging youngsters to get in the game, women to get in the game. One of the founding members of the Knickerbocker Golf Club was a lady by late named Mary Brock. And Mary was also the person who named the golf club Knickerbockers, because back in the 40s, many of the golfers wore knickers. She said, well, why don't you guys name the club Knickerbocker? And that's what happens. The result of us wearing so many times wearing knickers, that's where we got the name Knickerbocker Golf Club from. The late Charles Dorsey and Alex Smith. And they were mentors, my mentors. They were the ones who really got me become an active member of Knickerbocker and to stay in golf as long as I did. So I owe a great deal to them, because one of the things I believe is that being a golfer kept me out of trouble. So instead of going to the pool rooms and other places like that, I came to the golf course because I didn't have a choice. They called me Little Willie, and they said, Little Willie, we're going to go play golf today. You're not going to the pool room. So I took their advice because I respected them, and I followed them and admired them. So I just did what they told me. So consequently, they had me started me out as secretary of the club, and then I worked up through as I became president. So I was president of Knickerbocker for a number of years, so they could actually see, number one, the problems and the challenges we had to get into golf. For example, even right here, where I'm sitting right now, I was fighting back in the 50s, early 50s, to become a member of the New Haven Golf Club. They did not want us to become members. Being a member of the New Haven Golf Club was that you could get a state handicap. In other words, the state handicap is a card that gives you the right to play in tournaments. So when you go to play the tournaments, they want to see if you're an authentic player. And that's your form of identification, that you are an authentic player and you're affiliated with a club. And so in Connecticut, if you didn't have you were affiliated with a club, then you couldn't play because you couldn't get a handicap. Okay. So that was a challenge right here for 4 or 5 years. So the New Haven Golf Club would not allow us to get into join. They barred us. They would put up all kinds of barriers. Well, we don't have the application, or the guy that you need to see is not here, or all kinds of little things, to discourage you from becoming a member. It's because we were constantly fighting, and I guess they didn't want to be embarrassed, so constantly we were. I think it might have started in Hartford, might have been the first club to allow blacks to play, and so once the blacks played in the tournaments in the Hartford area, So New Haven said, well, we might as well do the same thing. After 4 or 5 years of battling, we were able to play in the state tournament if we wanted to. More to open the doors for blacks to play on the PGA Tour than any other person like that. Because of his stature. He was a former heavyweight champion. Everybody knew him. And he was able to sponsor a couple of the professionals, to make sure that they had the money. The biggest problem in terms of having talent, you had to have some money, somebody with money behind to sponsor you. So Joe Lewis was able to help some of the players, particularly like Charles Sifford. So to make sure not only they could get to the tournaments, but have the money to play, to put up for whatever the sponsorship was. And let's say at that time it cost you maybe $250 just to enter the tournament. Joe Lewis made sure that some of these boys had that kind of money. And he would push to get them into the tournament. So even though some of them did not want us there, because of Joe Lewis would say, look, I want these guys to play, and he'd make a noise, get publicity and whatever it is to get these guys in these tournaments. So today, equivalent to $1,500. But see, the young black players didn't have that kind of money. But they had the talent, as I said. At least I would say that there were a lot of players, in fact, in my hometown, that I can think of, had talent, but they didn't have money. So they never left Newport News. We had a lot of Tiger Woods down there. You never heard of them. But because they didn't have, they had talent, but they never got out of their hometown. Okay? In many cases, you can have talent, but if nobody don't mentor you and sponsor you, you'll never make it to as a PGA player or any profession. So that's what happens to a lot of folks. There was a kid in my hometown named Nick Hudgens. He was Tiger Woods' father. Young guy, same build, same height, great talent. But he never left Newport News. Nobody ever heard of him. Nick Hudgens. But he's a legend in that part of the country. He played the best of the best. He played the best white boys in the area. In many cases, people to make $1. We were too young to do anything else, so all of my close friends caddied because there was nothing else to do. Unless you work in the kitchen and wash dishes or something of that sort. So we had a choice: either wash dishes or caddy. So we chose the caddy, and being caddy, we were exposed to golf. We watched them, we taught them. And as a matter of fact, I was teaching millionaires 12 years old how to play golf. And I didn't realize until later that I was giving lessons. Having started as a caddy, and I was very fortunate. I was fortunate, I guess you call it fortunate. I was so small that the pro, who happened to be my aunt, worked for him. My aunt was his nanny. So anyway, he sort of, I guess he sort of took to me, I guess, because I was Miss Susan's nephew. So anyway, so I would work with Joe Fuller, who was a pro there, and Mr. Fuller would be giving lessons to the richest women around. So I would also pick up his tips as I would go out and chase the balls and these women hit and bring them back. And listening to what Joe was teaching them, how to turn and how to hold the golf club, the stance and the alignment, et cetera, et cetera. So the best things to happen can happen or will happen for young blacks in this country as far as golf is concerned is the advent of the First Tee organization. And by the way, the First Tee organization executive director is no other than Joe Lewis Jr. Joe Lewis Barrett. That's Joe Lewis's son. As a youngster, through his dad, Joe Lewis, he has become a real golf addict. Yeah. Well, first he has an affiliate with the Allen Memorial Golf Course, which means they that put some money into developing certain areas so that the kids have an area to practice, okay? And they play here at least once or twice a week during the summer. The Knickerbocker is one of the original sponsors of youth organizations in this state. Here's a picture here was taken in the mid-'60s with some of our youngsters that we had sponsored into the golf. And I need to tell you, many of these kids went on to college, and many of these kids today are all around the country leading very viable lives, and many of them are active in their community, and most of them are still involved in golf in some way. And I can think of Sterling Johnson Jr., who lives in Little Rock, Arkansas. There's a picture right here, and he's a kid who started right here in this club, okay? And Arthur Griffith Jr. and his nephews, his brothers, they're also involved in golf here in New Haven. Long before there was a first tee, or even Tiger Woods for that matter, we were doing junior golf because we felt that there was a need for this kind of organization even 35 and 40 years ago. And we continue to have an organization. And we started the Inner City Golf Club here. So we've been working with junior golfers for well over 40 years. All right. Tee it up, dude. So how'd you play today?
I played pretty good there. I played yesterday.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Beautiful day out today.
You're playing a lot of golf these days.
Yeah, well, you know, trying to stay in shape.
They used to come up here at 5:30 in the morning to tee off, and they wouldn't let them tee off. I mean, the white people wouldn't let them tee off till 3:30, 4:30 in the afternoon. You know, just to hear that story, having these guys up here for 10 hours just to play golf, and then when they get to play, they can only play 9 holes. Now we're at a point now. I mean, Knickerbockers, we can come up here at 8 o'clock and tee off by 8:15. That's how much time has changed over the past. The club started back in 1944. They laid the groundwork for us back then. Now we're just following their footsteps, and it can only get better from here on.
I see a real good future for youngsters coming behind us. You know, for example, we have 3 kids. They all play golf, and they can join country clubs if they like. The opportunity for blacks to work inside the industry today are phenomenal. They're selling clothes, selling golf equipment, becoming golf teachers. Just the area today is just phenomenal. And a lot of the groundwork has been laid by us so that they can do that. I can remember when I came here, when I joined, we had Mrs. Greenlee, was also a very, very good golfer. Her husband owned the Monterey, and she played golf every day. She played all over the country, but she was a member of Knickerbocker, and there were a number of ladies in the Hartford area that played. So we've had a number of black lady golfers for the past 60 years. She's a professional golfer. She became a professional golfer after she retired from tennis, and she played here, by the way. Say going back to the 50s, even the 40s, Charles Sifford could be standing right here. Ted Rose was standing here, Jim Dent, many great players. One of the main reasons why so many of the black pros came to at the time, there were limited courses that they could play in tournaments, and New Haven was always one of the tournaments that offered a fairly good cash pot, and so they could come here and pick up a few dollars and go on to the next event. But also, there was a big social thing that was tied into, you know, we had a place to go after the tour was over. We either socialized here or at the Knickerbocker Golf Club or at the Elks Club, places like that, and they enjoyed being part of this movement, basically to open the doors, and it was a continuation of discussion and what to do to make golf better for others. So it was just so much happening around golf, you know, more than just a golf tournament. It was what we do for the next coming generation. And Most golfers, 99% of the golfers always think they're better than they really are. Golf is a very competitive game. If you want to play well, you need to practice. It's a game that disciplines you, and it's a game that that will show what kind of personality you are. John Jacobs was probably one of the best players ever come out of Connecticut, black or white. But he never got beyond Connecticut. He played in professional tournaments and did very well money-wise. But when he got an opportunity, he was a little old. John was probably one of the most gifted players ever came out of Connecticut. He passed away about 10 years ago in South Carolina. But to my knowledge, George, from what I've seen, he was probably the most talented golfer that ever came out of Connecticut. Charles Dorsey,
I recognize him.
Charles Dorsey, and Tom Ledbetter. Got a golf tournament?
Right.
Okay. Back in 1987. The Knickerbocker Club, that is, has sponsored many golf tournaments since 1944. They've had an annual tournament, a Pro-Am golf tournament, which is sponsored up until the late 90s. And as a result of them having this tournament, many of the past PGA, local members of the PGA, such as Lee Elder, Calvin Pete, Pete Brown, Charles Sifford, all of those players, for the most part, played in the Knickerbocker golf tournament. I can remember seeing Calvin Pete play here when he first started back in the 60s. And this was like a home base for Charles Sifford. Charlie played in the Knickerbocker Open many, many years, and I need to tell you, he also won quite a bit of money here in New Haven. And I believe a lot of that money helped him to stay on the PGA circuit, along with a number of other pros. But one of the more distinguished 61, Charles Sifford was prohibited from playing on the PGA circuit. But Charlie played here since I can remember as early as 1950, 51, Charlie Sifford played here at Knickerbocker Golf Tournament. Charles is probably one of the more prominent players that played here. Although Jim Dent played here in later years, and he went on to have a very successful, and still being very successful on the senior PGA circuit. But New Haven has been a very outstanding place for these players to get a start and continue to play. One of the more important events that I think, at least that I've witnessed in my lifetime, was to be at the Greater Hartford Open on August 20th, 1967. On that day, Charles Sifford won his first PGA tournament, where he captured the Greater Hartford Open with a score of 272. I'm proud. I was so pleased that I was there to see him tee off on the first hole, and I followed Charlie for the entire 18 holes. And I'm also pleased to announce that on that day, there were 3 charter members of the Knickerbocker Golf Club there with me that witnessed that event. That was Mrs. Teola Dorsey, Alex Smith, and Charles Dorsey, and myself. So we were the only 4 members of the Knickerbocker Golf Club to go to that event. And boy, I cannot tell you how elated we were when Charlie made his final putt on the 18th hole to win the Greater Hartford Open and come away with a prize of $20,000. I need to make a point that when Charlie won this event, he was 44 years old. Now, can you imagine what would have happened if he had been allowed to play on the PGA circuit at age 24 or 25, going back, turning the clock back 20 years. Now, past his peak, but I was very happy to see him, even at age 44, to take down these youngsters and win the first prize at the Great Arthur Open. If you can imagine, if Charlie had been able to compete back in, say, the 50s when he would have been in his 20s, we had the Palmers and we had the Nicholases on. But there is some question in my mind, to think, and now that I think about it, did they really compete against the very best to win? Because guys like Elder and guys like Sifford, Ted Rhodes, who never made it because of discrimination. So I wonder if they really competed against the very best players in the world at that time because of this segregation in golf. Pete Brown, he was the first player to win a PGA event, and that was back in 1964. He won what is called the Waco Open. So he even won a PGA tournament event even before Charlie Sifford did. But it did not have the significance, although it was sponsored by the Professional Golf Association, PGA. Okay? So he was actually the first African American to win a PGA sponsored event, and again in 1964. Now he won his second major tournament in 1969, which was the San Diego Open.